Summary. Izuku Midoriya is suicidal. Why wouldn't he be? No parents, no friends, no future. But he's not quite ready to throw his life away. He should at least try to throw it at some villains. So he becomes a vigilante. But not a brave, heroic crime fighter, dodging heroes and officers at every turn. No, he gets arrested his very first night out. Through a combination of bullshitting everyone, quirkist lawmakers, and the technical definition of vigilantism, he makes it back out onto the street. It's just self-defense, right? Or, Izuku's a vigilante, a pretty good one too, but he's shit at dodging law enforcement. Luckily for him, since he's not actually breaking any laws, he doesn't have to. The railing of the Aldera Junior High roof was rusted, cold, and smelled faintly of wet iron. It was a detail that Izuku Midoriya noted with the detached interest of a coroner examining a corpse. He wasn't a corpse yet, but the logistics were certainly in place. Izuku looked down. It was a 4-story drop, high enough to do the job. He sighed, his breath puffing out in a white cloud against the twilight. If I jump, Izuku muttered to himself, kicking a pebble off the edge and watching it plummet. The janitor has to clean it up. Mr. Mapu's nice. He gave me a towel and Kachan blew up my soda. I don't want to ruin Mr. Mapu's week. He stepped back from the ledge. His life was, objectively speaking, a waste of sperm. His father was a fire-breathing memory who had gone out for milk 6 years ago and apparently got lost on a different continent. His mother, Inko, had slowly dissolved into a puddle of guilt, cheap wine, and neglect, transforming the apartment into something more akin to a karaoke bar's dumpster than a home. At school, he was a quirkless punching bag. Logic dictated that removing himself from the equation was the most efficient solution. But, Izuku reasoned, shoving his hands into the pockets of his yellow oversized hoodie, that's boring. And stupid. If I'm gonna die anyway, I might as well use my body for something. Like, I don't know, a meat shield? He paused. People need saving. Heroes are busy with endorsements. If I go out there and try to stop a mugging, 2 things happen. 1, I save someone. Good. 2, the villain kills me. Also good. It's a win-win scenario. A grim, hollow smile touched his lips. Well then, time to go to work. Attempt number 1. Izuku did not have a costume. He had a pair of red sneakers, a dark green hoodie that had seen better days, and a rusty metal pipe he had found behind a dumpster 3 blocks away. He didn't have to wait long. Musutafu was a safe city, statistically, but if you walked down an alleyway looking for a victim, the crime tended to find you. A man with a mutation quirk that gave him crab claws stepped out of the shadows like some sort of cliché Disney villain. Hand over all your money, kid. Izuku looked at him. He felt absolutely no fear. Why would he fear the thing he was actively soliciting? No, Izuku said. The man's eyes narrowed. Huh? You want to die? Ideally, yes, Izuku said politely. But I left my wallet at home, so you're wasting your time. The crabman growled and lunged. Izuku, driven by a sudden and inconvenient instinct to not feel pain, ducked. The man's claws snapped through the air above him. Izuku twisted, swinging the metal pipe with all the hysterical strength of a 13-year-old with a hero complex and a waning will to live. Crack. The pipe collided with the man's knee. The man screamed, his claw reflexively snapping shut on air, and he toppled over. Izuku didn't stop. He took a step back, raised the pipe above his head, and brought it down on the man's skull. The man went limp. Izuku stared at the unconscious body. Oh, I won. He felt a vague sense of disappointment. Freeze, please! 2 officers rounded the corner, guns drawn. They took in the scene, a small, trembling child holding a pipe, and a large mutant unconscious on the ground. Drop the weapon! Izuku dropped the pipe. Well, he thought as they cuffed him, suicide by cop is also an option. Officer Tamakawa was a tired man. He sat across from the small, green-haired boy in the interrogation room. The kid looked like he hadn't slept in a week, and hadn't eaten a vegetable in 2. Only the latter was true. He'd passed out from exhaustion yesterday. "Okay, kid," Tamakawa sighed. "Name?" "Midoriya Izuku." "Quirk?" "None." Tamakawa paused. He looked up from his report, then down at the kid, then back at the report. "None?" "I'm quirkless, sir." The officer frowned. "Don't lie to me. You took down a 200-pound man with enhanced strength. You clearly used some sort of combat-oriented quirk." "I hit him with a pipe," Izuku said flatly. "Physics doesn't require a quirk." "We're charging you with vigilantism," Tamakawa said, closing the folder. "Illegal use of a quirk to enforce the law, assault, and public disturbance." Izuku blinked. He leaned forward. The apathy in his eyes sharpened into something intelligent and sadistic, a look akin to a lawyer's. "Can you read me the definition of vigilantism again, officer?" Tamakawa rolled his eyes. "The Vigilante Act of 2156 states that any unauthorized use of a meta-ability or quirk to engage in combat with a villain or criminal—" "Stop," Izuku interrupted. "Read that part again. Use of a meta-ability or quirk." Tamakawa stared at him. "I am quirkless," Izuku stated. "I cannot use a quirk. Therefore, I cannot be a vigilante under the current legal definition." The room went very quiet. "I acted in self-defense," Izuku continued, his voice flat to keep from shaking with laughter. "I was walking home. A villain attacked me. I happened to find a piece of debris and defended myself. I'm sure there's something in that law book of yours that allows for a reasonable force to prevent bodily harm. He had claws. I had a pipe. I feared for my life." You went into that alley on purpose." "Can you prove that?" Izuku asked. "Is it legal to walk in an alley?" Tamakawa opened his mouth, closed it. He looked at the paperwork. He looked at the kid. If he processed this as vigilantism, he'd have to fill out the form 12B, prove the kid had a quirk, which the registry said he didn't, and call a quirk counselor. If he processed it as self-defense, he could kick the kid out the door and go back to his coffee. Furthermore, the idea that a quirkless kid could actively hunt criminals was laughable. It was impossible. Clearly, the kid got lucky. Poor thing. Probably traumatized. "Get out of here," Tamakawa grunted, rubbing his temples. "And stay out of alleyways." Izuku stood up. "Can I have my pipe back?" "No." "Fair enough." Attempt number 25. "You had the right to remain Oh, it's you." Officer Sansa sighed, lowering his handcuffs. Izuku was sitting on the chest of a man with knives for hands who had attempted to rob a convenience store. The robber was currently crying because Izuku had sprayed extra-strength window cleaner in his eyes. "Hi, Officer Sansa," Izuku said, waving a bottle of Windex. "Midoriya, this is the 3rd time this week. It's a dangerous neighborhood. I'm very unlucky. You live 4 miles away from here." "I enjoy long walks." Sansa pinched the bridge of his nose, or the feline equivalent. "You sought out and assaulted a wanted criminal." "He had a knife. Hands. Whatever. I happened to pick up this handy ammonia-based glass cleaner. I feared for my life." "Several witnesses heard you shout, 'Come at me, you discount cutlery set,' before he drew the weapon." "I have a stutter when I'm nervous." It was a verbal tic. Sansa stared at the boy. The boy stared back, dead-eyed and unbothered. Sansa knew the law by heart thanks to this prick in his side. He knew the Vigilante Act was written 80 years ago by people who forgot quirkless people existed. He also knew that arresting a quirkless minor for beating up a villain would make the police force the laughingstock of the media. Police helpless to stop crime, quirkless middle schooler does their job with cleaning supplies. "Get in the car," Sansa groaned. "I'm driving you home." "My mom isn't home," Izuku said helpfully. "She's at a strip club." "Then I'm driving you to the station so you can sit in the lobby until you get bored." "Do you have that vending machine with the hot cocoa?" "Yes." "Okay." It was 5 weeks into Izuku's suicide by heroism tour when he ran into the first wall that couldn't be climbed with legal jargon and Windex, not even the extra strength kind. It was 2 a.m. Izuku was currently engaging in a tactical retreat, running away screaming, from a villain who could shoot spikes from his eyebrows. "Why won't you die?" the villain roared. "You know, I was just asking myself the same question," Izuku yelled back, skidding around a corner and scrambling up a fire escape. He reached the roof, chest heaving. The villain followed, spikes bristling. Izuku looked around. No pipes, no cleaning supplies, just gravel. This is it, Izuku thought, turning to face the villain, the end of the line. Fucking finally. He spread his arms. "Do it! Make it quick!" The villain sneered, aiming an elbow. "Goodbye, brat!" Suddenly, the villain's spikes retracted. The man looked confused, shaking his arm. "What the?" A grey capture scarf whipped out from the shadows, wrapping around the villain and slamming him into the concrete. In seconds, the threat was neutralized. Izuku blinked in disappointment. He looked at the shadows. A tall, disheveled man with floating black hair and red eyes stepped out. He looked like a hobo who had fought a bear and lost, but Izuku recognized the yellow goggles. "Eraserhead," Izuku breathed. "An underground hero. A real pro." Aizawa Shota deactivated his quirk, his hair falling flat. He looked at the unconscious villain, then at the small child in the yellow hoodie standing on the edge of the roof. "Step away from the ledge," Aizawa said, his voice rough. Izuku looked at the drop. "It's not that high." "Kid, step away." Izuku stepped away, looking back at the edge longingly. Aizawa approached him. "You're the kid the precinct keeps talking about, the administrative hazard." "I prefer law-abiding citizen," Izuku corrected. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. "You're playing a dangerous game. Vigilantism is illegal." "I'm quirkless," Izuku recited automatically. "Vigilantism requires quirk usage. I am a civilian engaging in aggressive self-defense." "You ran straight into that alley the moment you saw him. You weren't cornered." "I got lost." "On a roof." "GPS is unreliable." Aizawa stared at him. He saw the bruises on the kid's face. He saw the scuffed knuckles. But most importantly, he saw the eyes. He'd seen those eyes on victims, on burnt-out pros, and in the mirror. They were the eyes of someone waiting for the world to finish the job of killing them, and was annoyed it was taking so long. Aizawa sighed, a long, rattling sound. "I'm arresting you." "On what charges?" Izuku challenged. "Public nuisance? Jaywalking?" "Curfew violation," Aizawa said. "And child endangerment, since you clearly don't have a guardian watching you." Izuku faltered. That's a social services issue, not a police issue." "I'm a pro-hero," Aizawa said, wrapping the capture scarf around Izuku's waist and hoisting him up like a sack of potatoes. "I have broad discretion when it comes to the safety of minors. You're coming with me." "This is kidnapping," Izuku dangled, not bothering to fight. "It's protective custody. Shut up." Interrogation Room B. Again. Detective Tsukauchi Namasa placed a cup of warm milk on the table. "I hate milk," Izuku said. "It's good for your bones," Tsukauchi said pleasantly. "Eraserhead tells me you tried to fight Spycarn with gravel." "That's a dumb name. So unoriginal. Almost as bad as calling a villain made of sludge the sludge villain, or something like that." Aizawa was leaning against the wall in the corner, arms crossed, glaring. Tsukauchi sat down. "Midoriya," the detective started. "We checked your record. You've been picked up over a dozen times in the past 2 weeks alone. Every time, you talk your way out because of the wording of the Vigilante Act." "It's a poorly written law," Izuku shrugged. "Not my fault legislators are quirkist." "True," Tsukauchi said, his quirk digging in his mind. "But here's the problem. You are going to die. You are 13, you have no combat training, no quirk, and a death wish." "I don't have a death wish," Izuku lied. Buzz. Tsukauchi raised an eyebrow. "You know my quirk, right?" "I have a death indifference?" Izuku amended. Ping. Truth. Aizawa let out a frustrated noise. "He's suicidal, Tsukauchi, look at him. He's throwing himself at villains, hoping one of them gets lucky." "That's speculation," Izuku shot back. I'm trying to help society. By getting stabbed, Aizawa snapped. It distracts the villain, doesn't it? The silence in the room was heavy. Aizawa walked over to the table and slammed his hands down. He loomed over Izuku. Most kids would have flinched. Izuku just looks bored. Why? Aizawa asked. Why not? Izuku countered. I'm quirkless. Statistically, I have no future. My employment prospects are minimum wage at best. My social standing is 0. My one present parent uses more of her salary for hookers than food. If I trade my life for a few saved purses or a marginally safer neighborhood, that's a net positive for the economy. Aizawa looked like he was in physical pain. He looked at Tsukauchi. I can't arrest him for being depressed. No, Tsukauchi groaned. And we can't hold him. He hasn't broken a law. I technically loitered, Izuku offered. You could find me, but I'm broke. We have to let him go, Tsukauchi said, defeated. Aizawa ground his teeth. If I let you go, you're going back out there. Probably. Tuesday is usually a high crime night. Aizawa stood up. He looked at the boy. This broken, intelligent, suicidal, quirkless boy who valued his life less than a crumpled receipt. Fine, Aizawa said. Process him out. Izuku hopped off the chair. See? Easy. But, Aizawa added, a demonic grin spreading across his face that was significantly scarier than any villain Izuku had faced. Since you are so interested in the law, you should know about the Good Samaritan Observation Clause. Izuku paused. The what? Nobody really knows what it was made for, but it applies here, Aizawa said. It means, since you are a concerned citizen, constantly finding trouble, I, a pro-hero, will be conducting random, mandatory wellness checks on you whenever I see you on the street, to ensure you aren't lost or something. You can't do that, that's harassment. It's protection, Aizawa said. And if you run, that's fleeing a pro-hero, which is a crime, and then I can arrest you for real. Izuku narrowed his eyes. You wouldn't. Try me, problem child. 2 nights later, Izuku was stalking a purse snatcher. He was just about to accidentally drop a brick he'd named Justice onto them when a capture scarf wrapped around his ankle and yanked him upside down. He swung in the air, face to face with an upside-down Eraserhead. Evening, Aizawa said. I was preventing a theft, Izuku said, arms crossed, hanging like a bait. The police are already on their way. You look like you haven't eaten dinner. I ate? A protein bar is not dinner. Aizawa began walking, dragging the floating Izuku behind him like a balloon. Where are we going? Put me down! This is undignified! We are going to the station. I can't arrest you yet, but I can keep you there for a wellness check. Also, I have paperwork to do, and I don't trust you not to jump into traffic if I leave you alone. I have rights! You also have the right to remain silent, and yet you refuse to exercise it. 3 days later, Izuku was cornered by 3 thugs. It was actually getting a bit hairy. He had lost his pipe, and his pepper spray was empty. Any last words, quirkless trash? One thug sneered. Yeah, Izuku sighed, looking at his watch. You're standing on his patrol route. What? Thwack, thwack, crunch. A Eraserhead dropped from the sky, knocked all 3 out in under 4 seconds, and then turned to Izuku. You're bleeding, Aizawa noted, sounding annoyed. I headbutted his fist. I think I broke his knuckles. Aizawa reached into his utility belt, pulled out a juice box, and stabbed in the straw. He shoved it into Izuku's mouth. Drink, then we're going to the hospital. I don't need a hospital. I have band-aids at home. Required medical assessment for a witness to a crime, Aizawa said smoothly. Get in the robot. Capture weapon, Izuku. I have legs! Not fast ones. It became a routine. A horrible, dysfunctional routine, but on the back of bureaucratic nonsense. The police officers at Musutafu stopped seeing Izuku as a nuisance, for the most part, and started seeing him as the station mascot. They kept a spare blanket in the break room for him. When he was brought in, usually by Aizawa, sometimes by a confused rookie, they didn't even book him anymore. They just pointed to the couch. Hey, Midoriya, Officer Sansa would say. Rough night? Tase the guy who tried to steal a bike, Izuku would mumble, accepting a donut. Eraser had caught me before I could finish zip-tying him. Shame. Better luck next time. In the background, Aizawa would be screaming at the chief of police about how the foster care system was failing, and how he couldn't legally adopt a kid just to ground him, but he was getting pretty darn close to finding a loophole. He needs therapy, not a jail cell, Aizawa yelled in the captain's office. We can't force him to go to therapy unless he's convicted, the captain yelled back, and we can't convince him because he keeps exploiting the Self-Defense Act. Then change the law. I'm a police captain, not Parliament. Outside the office, Izuku sipped his juice box. He looked at his hands. They were scarred. Rough. He was still alive. It was annoying, really. He had tried to throw his life away, and instead, he had accidentally acquired a nocturnal guardian angel who looked like a homeless caterpillar, and a police force that treated him like an eccentric intern. Midoriya. Aizawa stormed out of the office, looking more tired than humanly possible. Let's go. The gallows? Izuku asked hopefully. No, I'm off shift. I'm taking you to a diner. You're going to eat pancakes until you vomit, and then you're going to explain to me exactly how you disarmed a man with a knife only using a live salmon. It was dead by the time I disarmed him, Izuku said, standing up. Walk. As they walked out of the station, the morning sun was just starting to rise. Izuku squinted at it. You know, Izuku said, I'm just going to go out again tomorrow. I know it, Aizawa said, and I'll be there to arrest you. Again. I'll just talk my way out of it, and I'll just drag you back. Aizawa looked down at him. There was no pity in his eyes, just exasperation and a strange hint of fondness. I can do this all day, kid. Izuku looked up at the hero. For the first time in a long time, the hollow feeling in his chest was a little less vast. It wasn't a happiness, exactly, but at least it was busy. Challenge accepted, Eraserhead, Izuku said. Eat your pancakes, problem child.